Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Piyush and this is day 16 in 28 days of AZ Terraform. In this video, we'll be looking into Azure Active Directory authentication using service principal, which is also known as Entra ID these days because Microsoft has rebranded their service from Azure Active Directory to Entra ID. So that's what we'll be looking at. We'll be doing demo. As always, I'll show you step-by-step guide and I will share the task as well for you to do the hands-on. The comments and like target of this video is gonna be 200 likes and 100 comments in the next 24 hours. And once you do that, I will unlock the next video. Okay, so without wasting any time, let's start with the video. So I'm in my Visual Studio Code. Let me just open this. I'm gonna just delete some files. Okay, so that we can create it together. Let's delete it and let's delete the Terraform. We'll do the initialization from beginning. So let's delete these as well. What else? tf state and main.tf as well. So we only have versions.tf and user.csv. I'll show you what that is. So let's just delete it. Oops, I deleted it from the wrong folder, not that one. This is not where I made the changes. I had to delete it from this folder. Okay, so this one. Okay, oh, I already deleted main.tf from here, so that's good. We can keep git.ignore. Okay, so now we have readme file, versions, users. Okay, so let me see in which folder am I. Day 16. All right. Okay, so I'm in my in this folder, and over here I'm gonna create a new file, call it main.tf. Okay, so what we'll be doing, very first we'll be trying to get the default domain list from our default subscription. Okay, so it's pretty simple, as you know, like what we have done. To if we need to get the detail from any existing resource, what we use is data source. So yes, we'll be using a data source for Azure AD domain, and we'll try to get the domain name details. So let's start with that. Let's start with, over here I already have my versions.tf where I have initialized the Azure AD version. I'm using Azure AD 2. I believe Azure AD 3 is also available, so feel free to use whatever you want. So I'm using this particular version of Azure AD provider, and I have not used any other provider like Azure RM or so, because we'll not be provisioning any resources. We'll mostly be working with Active Directory in this demo. So that's why this provider should be sufficient for now, and we'll add if we need anything else, right? So you can create a data source with the data, and name is Azure AD. I think it should be domains. Yeah, Azure AD domains. Let's give it a domain AAD. Okay, and now what we need the name. Let's see what the name is. I don't think it supports name unexpected attribute. Yeah, so it will have different field. We can check it from the documentation. Let's see. Okay, so this is the data source, Azure AD domains. Okay, and the way we use it, this we can leave the value as blank, or if we want to provide any argument, what we need is we can use this only initial or only default, which will only return the default domain and only will return the initial domain, which is your primary Azure Active Directory tenant domain. Okay, so default is false, so we can use this argument because I would want to use my default domain. So only initial is equal to true, and that should be good. Now the other thing is, what we need is we need the like we need to print the output. Okay, so what we can do is output, and name of the output is, let's call it domain, and value we take it from let's see how is the value format. Okay, so you go with the data source name, resource name over here, which is Azure Active Directory domain. Then AAD domain is the reference name of it. Then dot domains, because there could be multiple domains, and then it's a list, right? So there'll be multiple domains, so you have to provide the index if you want to get all the domains, or domain name one, or so on. So star or zero or one, like that, and then domain name, we need the domain name of it. So if we, let me just write it, data dot azure ad domains dot ad domains dot domains dot default dot star dot domain name, default, oh no no no, not default, domains, and then star dot domain name. Okay, so let's see what it's gonna do now. I'm gonna run tf init and then tf plan. There is one thing though, I have to do some cleanup. Just let me just pause the recording. Okay, so we can resume for now. Okay, so the output is it's returning my domain name. Okay, so I only have one domain, so that's what it returns. And even though I have used star, but even if I use zero, because I only have one element, so it will return the same list. So you see, it's now returning domain, and now it's not returning the list, it's returning just the value of the variable. Earlier, if you see, it was returning a list because it's there in the square braces. Okay, so this is what we need. Now what we can do, that we can create a local, instead of using this value over here, we can just create a local out of it. So let's call it domain is equal to this. Okay, and wherever we want to use, we can use local dot domain or domain name, whatever. Okay, and over here we can just use local dot domain name, and what we need from it, yeah, that's it. So this should do just fine, because we have to use this value at other places as well. So yeah, this is what it is returning. Okay, so that's the first part. We needed to get the list of the domains. The second part is, what we'll do is, I have created a user.csv over here. Okay, so in this CSV, there is this header with first name, last name, department, job title, and here are some dummy names. First name is Michael, second name is, last name is Scott. So Michael Scott, department is education, job title is manager. So the way I have done it, so that we can create the Active Directory groups as well. So there are two groups mainly. One group is based on the department, which is education. So in education, there'll be all three users. Then there is another group with the name manager. So in manager, there'll be only one member. And then there'll be third group with the name engineer. So engineer will have these two members. Okay, so we'll be creating those three groups. So why do we create groups? Because it simplifies the permission. Now we don't have to assign the permissions or the roles directly to each and every user in an organization, right? So we create a group. Let's say in an organization you have a team of developers, DevOps engineers, operations managers, and so on. So you create separate group of each of those, and you manage permissions at group level. Then you add your users to the group, and it will all be done. So you don't have to go and check permissions for each of the users separately. So it's for like role based access control, and to simplify the permissions for different users. Now what we need to do is, we need to so we have created the data source. Now we need to get the list of the users from this CSV file. Okay, so over here, let's create another local, and we're gonna use a CSV function. It's called decode CSV, which will convert the CSV into a map, because we need, what we need is first name this, last name this, department this, okay, title this, and we need for every single user. But it's a CSV, it's not a map. How do we use that? So we use a function, so let's call it users equal to, we use this function which is called CSV decode. Inside that we'll pass the CSV, so it should be file, and file is in the same directory, so let's call it users.csv, I guess. um side double quotes, yeah, this should do it. So let's try to print the usernames as well. Okay, usernames and whatever the value in that. So let's create another output. Put username, okay, and value should be value should come from local, right? But there are multiple values, it's a map, so we have to iterate it with the help of a loop. Okay, so let's put that in square brackets and use a for loop. So for user in local dot what was the name, users, okay, and colon, let's take first name, okay, or first name last name, let's take both. So we use colon, and then, sorry, not colon, we use ampersand, and then inside this, and it has to go inside the double quotes, and then there's gonna be last name using the same syntax. First name, last name. Okay, did I do any mistake over here? It's throwing an error, it says invalid for at the end, or does it have to go inside this? Okay, I think it should be like that. Okay, let's print and we'll see if there is any error. Okay, it says must be at least one attribute specifying the resource name. Okay, it cannot be directly first name, we are not giving any reference to the iteration, right? So it has to be for user in local dot users, okay, and then it should be user dot first name and user dot last name, right? We have to use which iteration we want. I think that was the issue, but let's see. Okay, yeah, it printed it. So here are our usernames: Michael Scott, Jim Harper, Pam Beasley. Okay, so I guess this is fine. Now what we need is, so when we create an active directory user, we provide a name, and like we provide a name, and it could be a concatenation of multiple values, it could be combined through multiple values like first name, last name, directory name, and so on. Okay, so let's do that, let's formalize it. Okay, so what I'm gonna use, I'm gonna use a resource of type Azure AD users. Okay, so let's create a resource Azure AD user, and then let's give it a name. Let's call it users. Okay, now what we need name, we need user principal name, we need password, etc. So for that, we also have to read the values in an iteration, right? We have to do it for each of the user that is there in the CSV file, right? So for that, what we'll do is we'll use a for each loop over here. Okay, and because for each it has to go inside the curly braces, so we iterate it through for user in local dot users. Okay, and because it's a map, so we do user dot first name, and the syntax is correct, right? First, like as in, yeah, first underscore name, and and then equal to this. What is that? That's a user. Okay, and did I make a mistake? Let's see. Okay, it says display name, user principal name is required, so this is correct, it just it needs additional values, so yes, we'll provide the additional values. Now let's create the user principal name. User principal name is the name through which the user will be identified. Okay, it's the complete name is user principal name. That's what we call it. So now what we need is, let's say we need only the first character of first name, and then the last name, and then the domain name value. Okay, so for that we'll use a format function. Okay, format doesn't have to be just for the timestamp. We can format the way we want our output as well. So we provide the format in which format we want. Let's say we have three fields. Okay, so first is username, so we'll start with ampersand s. Then the second field is last name ampersand s, and then after that we need at the rate domain name, right? So we write at the name, at the rate, and then ampersand s. Okay, and this has to go inside double quotes. Okay, and now we provide the value. So we need to provide three values. It expect three values because that's how we have provided the format. So comma, and let's provide each of these values. So first value is each dot value, because we have used for each, so we can get the value from each dot value dot first name. Okay, now what I told you, I don't want the entire name, entire first name. I just want the first character of the name. So for this we use a function called substring. I hope you remember it. We did it in the past, one of the past topics. So we used sub str. Okay, and then with sub str we also have to provide comma 0 comma 1, like start from 0th element and only take the first element, which is the first letter of the first name. Okay, that's substring. And now we need the last name, right? So let's call it lower, so that we can provide that in the lower like lowercase, each dot value dot last name. Okay, that's the second value, and the third is domain name. Okay, so domain name can be like local dot domain name should be good, because we have already gotten the domain name over here. So local dot domain name is what we need. Okay, now this is user principal name. Now what next we need is password. So we'll generate a default password for each of the user, and they can change it afterwards once they log into the account. So for password, what we'll do is we'll use a similar format, not exactly the same, but we'll provide them instruction like your password is a combination of your first name, last name, and special characters. So that's what we're gonna add. Okay, so I hope you now have understood like how format works. So we'll use the same thing over here, format, and let's create the format with the ampersand s, ampersand s. So let's say three values, and at the end there is a special character exclamation. All right, and then over here we provide the values. So let's say each dot value dot last name. So first there'll be the last name, but let's say in lowercase. Okay, that's the first value. Now we need the first character of the first name. Okay, so for that, each dot value dot first name. Okay, and for that we use substring, substr. And how do we get it? We get it with colon comma 0 comma 1, start from 0 and go till first character. Now let's convert this into lowercase as well. Yeah, let's convert that into lowercase. Okay, and the third one is let's take something else. What can we take? So we have taken the last name, first name. Let's take the length of the first name. Okay, so length each dot value, okay, dot first name. Okay, that should be good. Now what error it is throwing? says display name is not specified, so let's specify the display name as well. I'm gonna close it over here. Okay, so let's give display name. Now display name is what you see on the user and how would it be displayed. So for that, what we'll do is we use in double quotes, we get the values from, for we already have the for each loop running, so we get the value from each dot value dot first name and each dot value dot last name. So we start with the dollar sign, and inside that curly braces each dot value dot first name, and give it a space again, dollar and curly braces each dot value dot last name. So this is how your name will be displayed. Now it has removed all the error. That means all the mandatory fields have been added. Now we can add some optional fields. So optional field, you can check it from the documentation or you can follow along. So display name is done. Now we can add force password change. Where, okay, no, inside this. Okay, so let's add force password change equal to true. That means after the first login, user has to change the password because we have provided them a default password. Okay, and you can make it as strong as you want, like over here. With this format, you can make it as per your compliance policy. If it needs uppercase letter as well, or if it needs multiple special characters, if it needs a certain length, you can do all of these. But you are already saying user to change it on the first login, so that should be good enough. Now you also provide few other details along with the name, such as their department name. So department name can go as each dot key or each dot value, and then you have your title, job title, so which can also go dot each dot value dot job title. Okay, and over here as well dot department. Okay, so now we have these things. So we have user principal name, we have password, we have display name, and so on. Okay, so I think this should be a good start. Now let's apply those changes. First, let's see TF plan. What does it show? Okay, so there are some error. Function lower expect only one argument in line 20. Okay, line 20. Expect. Okay, so we cannot do like this. What we can do is, I'll just take the function from here. Okay, and add lower inside this. Okay, this should be good. Okay, and I've, oh, there is a missing bracket over here, right? Substring. I think it should be like this, and yeah. Okay, so that was the other error it was throwing. So let's see now. Okay, it looks to be fine. So these were our outputs, and it says 3 plan to add. Ba, 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 ba. Okay, and user principal name will be like this, P, which was the first name, then the last name at the rate domain name. Okay, the format that we have specified. So let's go ahead and apply those changes. Okay, done. It created 3 users. Now let's go back to our Azure portal and so this is where we need to go. Okay, let me show you. We need to find this Microsoft Entra ID, which is your Azure Active Directory, and then go to users. Okay, so this is my default user that I had, and these are the 3 users that were just been created, and the user principal name is this: first name, first character of the first name, last name, at the rate domain name, and so on. So if you click on that, You will see other fields as well, like user principal name is over here. And okay, here is the display name, which is first name, last name, and I guess job title. And here is the job title, engineer, department is education. So these were the other fields that we have added. Okay, so we have created the active directory users. Now if you are getting permission denied error, make sure you have the required permissions. Okay, and the other thing is what you can do. Okay, so let's do another thing first. I'll tell you afterwards. So let's create some active directory groups and make the changes in that. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna create a new file inside the same folder and let's call it group.tf. Okay, and I'll add some resources over here, so I'll just walk you through it. So it's Azure AD group, like how we have created Azure AD user. Now we are creating groups. So let's create groups based on the department. So first is engineering. So display name is education department. Okay, and engineering. So that's one. Then we have to add the members in that group, right? So Azure AD group member is the resource name after that. And how do we do it? We do it with for each. And I'm not typing it again because I have already shown you how do we do that in the user section. So it's pretty much the same thing. So what we do is we iterate through the users for you in Azure AD users dot user, and where the name is you, so we are getting the name, and if the department is education, then add it over here. Okay, so this is the group association that we are using, group object ID and member object ID. Okay, so this is the ID of the user, this is the ID of the group, so we are joining them together whenever you see the department is education. Okay, so that means all the users with the department as education will go in this group. Okay, then we have another group, managers. Okay, in manager, if the job title is manager, that person will go inside this group. This is the group association. And then there is an engineer. So in engineer, if the job title is engineer, I guess it is for uh, all of them. No, let's see. If the job title is engineer, okay, engineer is for last two. Okay, then it will go where it is. Okay, then it will go inside this. And yeah, so let's see if we have set the dependency of this resource on active directory users. Okay, for each for you in, yeah, so this is the dependency that we have already created. So we are getting the value from Azure AD user, so it's good. Now what you can do is, how many groups I have created? I have created one engineering group, and then one managers group, and then one engineers group. I guess in engineering, yeah, because the engineering is based on department is equal to education. So all of these three have the same department, so that all of these three will go in the same group. So we have created three groups, one based on the department, which will have all three managers, another two based on the job title. So there will be one for manager and one for engineer. So we have three groups created. So we're creating three groups and the member association for each of those. So that's what we are doing over here. And let's just run tf plan and apply. Okay, tf apply. Okay, so it's creating groups and associations. Now you will see 9 resources because it will try to do the association for each of those members, right? So that is why. Okay, I think it's done. Now let's go to Entra over here, and these were the users. So go back and go to groups, say all groups. We have three groups, one is engineer, manager, department. And if we go to any of those, let's say engineers, there are two total members, view group members. We have Jim and Pam. Okay, because they stays together. And then we have managers. You know who's the manager? It's none other than Michael Scott. So that's good. That's what you wanted to test. What you can do is you can add. So there are two tasks that I want you to do in this video. Yes, because there's gonna be assignment as always. So what you can do is there's gonna be two things. First is uh, like whatever we have done with our user, like my user Piyush, right? So what you need to do is you need to create a service principal and do that with the service principal. So if you go over here, let me show you the documentation as well. So go over here and it will show you how you can authenticate with the service principal. Okay, create a service principal, provided certain permissions. So here are the permission that it needs domain read, group user read, group read, user write, and so on. So these permissions should be provided at the API level of service principal. This document has those details. And then after that is done, this is how you will authenticate. So you will create these three environment variables, right? Don't put that inside the file. So use like this way. Okay, export it from the command line. Okay, and then once you have done that, then your Terraform commands will be run through the service principal instead of the personal user. So that's one thing you need to do. Second thing is what you can do is you can create more users inside this file. Okay, users.csv, add our friend Dwight Schrute as well, add Kevin or whoever you likes. Okay, and then add a couple of more users and try to fit them in either of those groups or create new groups. So that's your task for today. So I hope, as always, this video was informational. You have now understood how do you create, manage users and group that are there in Entra ID through Terraform in Azure. And make sure you do the hands-on by yourself, and make sure you complete the comments and like target, and I will unlock the next video. So thank you so much. I will see you soon with the next video.